Why materialism cannot bring peace. Oh, what if I told you that some of the wealthiest, most successful people in the world, the ones with mansions, luxury cars, and closets full of designer clothes, often cry themselves to sleep at night? What if I told you that behind the glamorous photos, behind the perfect smiles, lies a heart that feels empty? And what if I told you the thing we're all chasing, money, possessions, status, might actually be the very thing stealing our peace? We live in a world that screams, buy more, own more, be more. From the moment you wake up, you're bombarded with advertisements, the latest phone, the next big car, a lifestyle that promises happiness if only you can afford it. But let me ask you, has buying something ever given you lasting peace? That rush of excitement when you open a package, how long does it really last? Minutes? Hours? Maybe a few days. Then it fades, and you're back to scrolling, searching, spending, hoping the next thing will finally fill the emptiness. This is the trap of materialism. It promises fulfillment, but it delivers restlessness. It's like drinking salty water when you're thirsty. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. The more you chase, the emptier you feel. I remember reading about a famous celebrity who said, "I have everything I ever dreamed of. Yet I wake up every morning wondering why I feel so miserable." Isn't that shocking? The very people we envy are often the ones quietly envying us, envying the simplicity of a peaceful night's sleep, a sincere hug, a meal eaten with gratitude. Why? Because peace cannot be bought. Peace cannot be ordered online. Peace is not hidden in a shopping bag. Peace lives in the heart, and the heart is not nourished by things. It is nourished by meaning, by gratitude, by connection, by faith. Think about this. You can own the softest bed, but if your heart is heavy, you won't sleep. You can own the fanciest clothes, but if your soul is restless, you won't feel beautiful. You can own a huge house, but if your heart is empty, every room will feel like a prison. Material things decorate your life, but they cannot heal your soul. And yet, here's the dangerous part, we don't notice the trap until we're deep inside it. Materialism is like a treadmill. You run faster, you sweat harder, but you never arrive. The finish line keeps moving. And one day you look back and wonder, where did my peace go? Where did my joy go? Where did my life go? But here's the good news, there is another way, a better way. A way that doesn't depend on how much you own, but on how much you value what you already have. It's the way of contentment, the way of gratitude, the way of remembering that your worth is not measured by your possessions, but by your character, your purpose, your connection to something higher. Faith teaches us this secret. The Prophet Muhammad said, "True wealth is not having many possessions, but true wealth is the richness of the soul." Doesn't that flip everything upside down? Society says wealth is about the size of your bank account. Faith says wealth is about the size of your heart. Society says peace is in buying more. Faith says peace is in being grateful for what you already have. Let's be honest. None of us will carry our cars, our phones, our clothes into the grave. When the final moment comes, the only thing that will matter is the state of our heart. Was it restless from chasing what never satisfied? Or was it at peace because it remembered its creator? So, the question is, are you living to collect things? Or are you living to collect moments, meaning, mercy, and love? Are you building a life that looks rich on the outside, but feels empty on the inside? Or are you building a life that feels full, even if it looks simple? Materialism cannot bring peace, because peace is not something you buy. Peace is something you live. It comes from knowing who you are, why you're here, and where you're going. It comes from filling your heart with gratitude instead of greed, with faith instead of fear, with love instead of envy, and Materialism creates an endless cycle of desire, but never delivers lasting peace. Happiness from possessions fades quickly, leaving people restless and empty. Peace cannot be bought. It is found in the heart through meaning, gratitude, and faith. True wealth is not in possessions, but in richness of the soul. Material things decorate life, but cannot heal the soul or provide purpose. Choosing contentment and purpose over possessions is the real path to peace. There are moments in life when anxiety makes you feel as though the world is caving in around you. Your heart races, your chest feels tight, and your mind begins to spin with thoughts you cannot control. Depression, on the other hand, creeps in quietly. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers, convincing you that you are powerless, that you are unworthy, that there is no point in trying anymore. Both of these struggles have one thing in common: they make you feel small, fragile, incapable. And yet, faith has the ability to flip that narrative entirely. It teaches you that true strength never rested in your own hands to begin with. It rests in the hands of Allah. Think of a child who is terrified during a thunderstorm. The lightning flashes, the thunder roars, and the child feels overwhelmed by the sheer force of nature. But then, the child's father takes his hand and says, "Don't worry, I am here." Nothing about the storm changes. The thunder is still loud, the lightning still bright. But suddenly, the child feels safe because he knows his strength is not his own. It comes from the one holding his hand. This is what faith does for you. It doesn't deny the storm, but it reminds you who holds your hand through it. Allah tells us in the Quran, "And whoever relies upon Allah, then He is sufficient for him." Sufficient, complete, enough. When you internalize this, it shifts everything. Anxiety says, "You're not in control." Faith responds, "Of course I'm not, but Allah is." Depression says, "You are weak." Faith responds, "Yes, but my Lord is strong." Suddenly, what felt like an unbearable weight becomes lighter because you're not carrying it alone. I once met a brother who struggled with severe panic attacks. He described feeling as though he was drowning. Even when he was standing in the middle of a room, he would gasp for breath, his heart pounding like a drum, convinced he was about to collapse. Doctors helped, therapy helped, but what truly changed him was when he began to repeat a simple dhikr during his moments of panic, "La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah." He told me, "At first I didn't feel any different, but slowly something inside me shifted. Every time I said it, I was reminding myself that strength doesn't come from me. And in those moments, I realized I don't have to be strong alone." His panic attacks didn't vanish overnight, but his relationship with them changed. They no longer defined him, because faith had redefined what strength meant. It is the same when depression convinces you that you cannot go on. You feel like you are carrying bricks on your chest. Waking up feels like climbing a mountain. Smiling feels impossible. And then you remember that the one who gave life to your soul is the one who sustains it every day. You whisper in sujood, "Why Allah? I cannot do this without you." That whisper is not weakness, it is strength. Because the strongest act a believer can do in the darkest moment is to kneel, place their forehead to the ground, and surrender. That act of surrender is in fact an act of empowerment because it plugs your fragile heart into the infinite source of strength. The Prophet A faced immense trials. He buried children with his own hands. He was rejected by his people, exiled from his city, mocked, beaten, starved. Yet in those moments of unbearable weight, he turned to Allah. In Taif, when stones were thrown at him and his body bled, he lifted his hands and said, "If you are not angry with me, then I do not mind." Look at the depth of this statement. He acknowledged his pain, but he rooted his strength in the pleasure of Allah. That is faith at its purest. It is the ability to stand when everything tries to knock you down, because you know you are leaning on something unshakable. Sometimes people think strength means you never cry, you never feel afraid, you never stumble. But faith teaches us a different truth. Strength is not the absence of fear, it is trusting Allah despite the fear. Strength is not pretending the pain isn't there, it is handing the pain to the one who can heal it. When you say, "Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil," Allah is enough for us and the best of guardians, you are reminding yourself that you don't walk into the battlefield of anxiety or depression unarmed. You walk in with Allah as your ally, and with Him you are never truly powerless. This is why faith transforms the narrative of anxiety and depression. It doesn't erase the human struggle, but it reframes it. You are no longer the victim of your emotions. You are the servant of the most powerful. And in serving Him, you discover a strength you never knew you had. Because faith whispers into the chaos, you don't have to carry this alone. Allah is carrying you. Here there is something extraordinary that happens when you begin your day with gratitude. Most people wake up and the first thing they feel is dread. The alarm goes off and instantly the mind races. Deadlines, bills, conflicts, worries. It's as if the day has already stolen your peace before you've even stepped out of bed. But faith offers us a secret, a way to shift the atmosphere of our hearts before the world has a chance to weigh us down. That secret is beginning with Alhamdulillah. Those simple words, thank you Allah, are like a reset button for the soul. Think of it this way. Imagine waking up in a dark room where the curtains are closed, the air is heavy, and you can barely see your hand in front of you. That is what it feels like to wake up with anxiety and depression. But the moment you whisper Alhamdulillah, it is as if you pull back those curtains and let in a stream of golden light. The room hasn't changed. The challenges are still there, but the way you see them, the way you feel about them, shifts completely. Gratitude is light, and light, even in the smallest amount, pushes away darkness. I once met a brother who struggled deeply with depression. He told me there were days he didn't even want to leave his bed, days when he felt like the world was gray and meaningless. But then he shared something remarkable. He said, "One day, I decided that no matter how heavy I felt, I would wake up and say 3 things I was grateful for. Even if it was something small, even if it was just, oh Ya Allah, thank you for letting me open my eyes this morning. Thank you for the roof above my head. Thank you for the taste of water on my tongue." At first, he said it felt forced, almost empty. But slowly, day after day, something began to change. His heart softened. The weight he carried felt lighter. He said, "Gratitude didn't cure my depression overnight, but it gave me a reason to keep going. It reminded me that even in pain, Allah was still blessing me." That's the beauty of faith-based gratitude. It's not blind positivity. It's not pretending everything is okay. It's acknowledging, yes, I am struggling. Yes, I am hurting. But even in this state, Allah is giving me breath, food, shelter, people who care, opportunities I may not even notice. It is choosing to look at life through the lens of what is still here, instead of what is missing. And that shift, though it seems small, is monumental. Psychologists often talk about how the brain is wired to focus on threats, on problems, on what's wrong. It's called a negativity bias. That's why anxious people always think of worst case scenarios, and depressed people struggle to see hope. But Islam gave us a practice that rewires this bias, shukr, gratitude. The Prophet Muhammad told us, "Look at those below you and do not look at those above you, for it is more suitable that you do not belittle the blessings of Allah upon you." That one piece of wisdom is like medicine for the anxious heart. Because when you stop comparing your life to those who seem richer, happier, more successful, and instead notice those who struggle with less, your perspective transforms. I remember once visiting a hospital ward. There were patients who could not move, who relied on machines to breathe, who couldn't speak without effort. And yet some of them smiled more brightly than people outside those walls. One young man, barely in his 20s, told me, "Every morning, I thank Allah that I can open my eyes, because I know there are people who never wake up." That hit me deeply. Here was someone facing unimaginable hardship, yet his heart was trained to find gratitude in the simplest act of breathing. If he could do that, what excuse do we have? Anxiety thrives in the soil of fear. Depression thrives in the soil of hopelessness. Gratitude is the water that cleanses that soil. Every time you say Alhamdulillah, you are reminding yourself, I am not abandoned. I am not empty. I am not without gifts. You are telling your heart, Allah is still with me, and if He is with me, I have enough. So imagine making this a habit. You wake up tomorrow, before touching your phone, before letting your mind spiral, and you say, Alhamdulillah for this new day. Alhamdulillah for my health, however imperfect. Alhamdulillah for my family, for my faith, for the chance to try again. What would happen if you repeated that for 7 days, for 30, for a lifetime? Slowly, your mind would stop obsessing over what is wrong and start noticing what is right. Your heart would begin to heal from the inside out. Gratitude does not erase the storm, but it gives you shelter while you pass through it. It does not remove the weight, but it gives you strength to carry it with dignity. And the more you practice it, the more you realize that even in your darkest moments, light has always been present. You just needed to open your eyes to see it. Imagine for a moment that you are standing on a mountain peak. The air is crisp, pure, and light. You breathe in deeply, and the oxygen fills your lungs so naturally you hardly notice it. In fact, unless something is wrong, you rarely ever think about breathing at all. It's invisible, it's constant, it's life itself. Now imagine someone walks up to you and says, I'll sell you this jar of air. It's premium, special, better than what you're breathing right now. At first you might laugh. Why would you buy what you already have? What is free? What surrounds you? But if they convinced you that the jar was rare, that maybe your own air wasn't good enough, or that everyone else was buying it, you might start to question yourself. You might even begin to worry, what if my air isn't enough? What if I need that jar to survive? And slowly, without realizing it, you could find yourself dependent on something that was never meant to be bought in the first place. That is how materialism works with peace. Peace is already available to you. It is already flowing through your life in moments of silence, in gratitude, in the warmth of relationships, in the stillness of your own heart. But somewhere along the way, society started selling us jars of air. They said, buy this phone, wear this brand, drive this car, live in this neighborhood, and then you will finally breathe. And like that, we began doubting the oxygen we already had. I once spoke with a young woman who had just graduated college. She was bright, ambitious, and already working at a top firm. She told me, if I just get promoted in the next 2 years, I'll finally feel at peace. I'll finally be able to relax. 2 years later, she did get promoted. When I met her again, I asked, so, did peace arrive? She smiled sadly and said, not really. Now I'm worried about the next step, the next title. It feels like I'm always holding my breath, waiting for the moment I can finally exhale. That's the danger of buying peace in jars. It convinces you to hold your breath, to delay your peace, to believe it lies just one purchase, one promotion, one milestone away. But peace doesn't live in the future. It lives in your present breath. Think of the last time you sat in a quiet place, maybe early morning when the world hadn't woken up yet. No noise, no rushing, just you and the stillness. Didn't a calm rise inside you almost effortlessly? That calm, that soft, quiet knowing is peace. You didn't have to order it online. You didn't have to prove you were worthy of it. It arrived simply because you allowed it. The tragedy is that we don't trust that. We think peace must be complicated, expensive, difficult. And yet the people who own almost nothing often radiate it the most. I remember traveling once to a small village where homes were made of wood and tin. Children ran barefoot, chasing one another through the dusty paths. Their toys weren't made in factories. They were sticks, stones, and imagination. Yet their laughter rang out louder and freer than anything I'd ever heard in the city. Their parents welcomed strangers with food they barely had enough of, smiling as if they had more than enough. And I thought to myself, if peace could be measured in bank accounts, these people should have none. But their eyes held something I rarely saw in boardrooms or luxury penthouses. They were breathing air I had forgotten existed. Contrast that with a man I once knew in the city. His apartment overlooked the skyline. His shelves were lined with awards. His closet was filled with suits that cost more than some families make in a month. One evening, over dinner, he said quietly, "I feel like I'm suffocating. No matter what I buy, it never fills me." Suffocating, that was the word he chose. Isn't that telling? Surrounded by everything money could buy, and yet he could not breathe. Because true peace, like oxygen, cannot be contained in walls, or stitched into fabric, or parked in a garage. Even science shows us something fascinating. Studies on happiness reveal that after a certain income level, enough to cover basic needs and live with modest comfort, money stops increasing happiness in any significant way. Beyond that, it's like adding jars of air to a room that's already full. You might stack them proudly, display them, compare them with your neighbor's jars, but you won't breathe any easier. And isn't it strange how we guard these jars so fiercely? We stress, we fight, we burn ourselves out chasing them. And in the process, we forget to notice the breath already in our lungs. We forget to notice the peace that comes when a child holds your hand, when a friend listens deeply, when you sit under a night sky and remember how small your worries really are compared to the universe above you. These are the moments that whisper, "You are already whole, you are already breathing." But here's the challenge: the world is loud. Advertisements scream at you all day long. Billboards, commercials, influencers, they are all selling jars of air. They will tell you, without this, you are incomplete. And unless you pause, unless you learn to listen inwardly, you will believe them. You will walk through life gasping for what you already have. The secret, if you want to call it that, is not to reject material things. Just as oxygen can fill a room alongside flowers, sunlight, and music, peace can live alongside comfort and possessions. The key is to remember what is essential and what is extra. Oxygen is essential. The jar is extra. Peace is essential. The car, the clothes, the gadgets, they are extras. Enjoy them, yes, but never mistake them for your breath. There's a quote I once heard that has never left me. You don't drown by falling in the water. You drown by staying there. In the same way, you don't lose peace by owning things. You lose peace when you sink into them, when you depend on them as your only source of air. The moment you realize peace is already inside you, you rise again to the surface, you breathe freely, you live freely. So picture yourself right now holding a jar of air, heavy, fragile, easily broken. Picture yourself clutching it tightly, afraid someone else might steal it, afraid you might run out. Now picture yourself setting it down. Feel the relief in your hands. Feel the air rushing into your lungs. That is the shift. That is the moment you reclaim what was always yours. And maybe, just maybe, the greatest wealth you could ever have is the ability to breathe without fear, to sit in silence and feel enough. To walk through life knowing peace is not something you earn, but something you allow. Because peace, like oxygen, has never been sold, it has only been forgotten. Imagine for a moment that you are holding a glass of water. Nothing special about it, it's just water. But if you are truly thirsty, if your throat is dry and your lips are cracked, that water feels like heaven itself. It refreshes, it soothes, it gives life. Now what if you had the same glass of water, but you were already full, already satisfied? Suddenly it's just water. The glass hasn't changed. What's changed is the state of your heart. Gratitude works the same way. Gratitude transforms the ordinary into extraordinary, the simple into sacred, the enough into more than enough. And that's why peace can only exist in a life filled with gratitude. I once spoke with a woman who had lost nearly everything in a natural disaster. Her home was gone, her possessions swept away, and yet as she stood in the wreckage, she smiled softly and said, "But my children are safe." That's all I need. In that moment, I realized how powerful gratitude is. She could have collapsed in despair. She could have focused on everything stripped away from her, but instead she chose to see what remained. And in that choice, she found peace where most of us would only find panic. Gratitude, you see, is not just a polite thank you. It is a lens. It is a way of seeing. Without it, we only notice what's missing. With it, we notice what's already abundant. Think about your own mornings. You wake up, perhaps a little tired, maybe already thinking of your to-do list, the bills waiting, the meetings ahead. But have you ever paused just to notice the miracle of breath in your lungs? To notice that your heart beats without asking your permission? To notice that before you've even stepped out of bed, life has already given you more than you could ever repay? That small pause is gratitude. And that pause creates peace. Without it, the day feels like a race you can never win. With it, the day feels like a gift you get to open. There's a story I love about two men eating the same bowl of rice. The first man looks down and mutters, "Rice again. Nothing but this plain meal." He eats with frustration, never satisfied, always wishing for more. The second man, holding the same bowl, closes his eyes and says, "How blessed I am to have food today when so many go hungry." And in that moment, the rice tastes sweeter, the experience richer. Same bowl, same rice, but one heart at war, the other at peace. Gratitude is what makes the difference. I once asked a group of young people what they thought would finally bring them peace. Some said wealth, some said love, some said freedom to travel the world. But when I asked them, what if you never get those things? Could you still live peacefully? The room went quiet. And then one young woman whispered, "Maybe if I learn to be grateful for what I already have." That whisper carried more truth than all the ambitious answers that came before. Because peace doesn't wait for the perfect conditions. Peace grows wherever gratitude is planted. Gratitude also brings alignment. Have you ever noticed how the people who seem most at peace are not the ones constantly striving to outdo everyone else, but the ones who live in harmony with their values? When you are grateful, you stop running in circles trying to be everything for everyone. You start asking, what matters to me? What do I already have that I've been overlooking? That question alone shifts your life. Instead of competing, you begin connecting. Instead of comparing, you begin appreciating. And in that shift, peace quietly enters. A friend once shared with me how every night he writes down 3 things he's grateful for. Simple things: the smile of his daughter, the warmth of his coffee, the sound of rain outside his window. He told me, "I used to fall asleep, worried about everything I didn't have. Now I fall asleep at peace because I realize how much I already do." Isn't that incredible? The act of writing down gratitude didn't change his circumstances. It changed his perspective. It aligned his heart with peace. When you are grateful, your life stops feeling like a constant debt and starts feeling like a constant gift. Imagine walking through your day as though every sight, every sound, every interaction was a present meant for you. The sun rising, the stranger holding a door, the laughter of a friend, even the challenges that stretch you. Gifts, all of them. That mindset doesn't make life perfect, but it does make life peaceful. Gratitude softens the sharp edges of disappointment. It quiets the noise of comparison, and it transforms the smallest moments into treasures. And here's the secret nobody tells you: gratitude is contagious. When you live with it, others feel it. They sense your calm, your appreciation, your peace. They start to wonder what you have that they don't, and the truth is, you don't have more, you simply notice more. Imagine the power of walking into a room not as someone who needs to prove their worth, but as someone who radiates peace because they are deeply grateful for life itself. That energy changes not just you, but everyone you meet. A wise man once said, "Gratitude turns what we have into enough." Let that settle in. Enough. That single word is the gateway to peace. Because isn't most of our stress born from the idea that we are not enough, that we don't have enough, that we aren't doing enough? Gratitude interrupts that lie. Gratitude whispers, "You are enough. This moment is enough. Life, even in its imperfection, is enough." And in that whisper, the restless heart finally rests. So perhaps the question isn't how to gather more possessions or achieve more milestones. Perhaps the question is, what am I overlooking right now that I could be grateful for? That shift alone creates an inner stillness. The job might still be stressful. The bills might still be waiting. The world might still be loud. But inside, where it matters, peace blooms quietly, nourished by gratitude. Because gratitude doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It makes every condition better. Gratitude doesn't demand more. It treasures what already is. And gratitude doesn't just change how you see life. It changes how you live it, moment by moment, with peace flowing from the inside out like a calm river that no storm can shake. Is this conversation helpful so far? Imagine sitting in a quiet room, no noise, no distractions, just you and your thoughts. At first it feels unsettling, like silence pressing on your chest. You glance at your phone, tempted to scroll, to check, to escape. But then you realize something. The silence isn't empty at all. It's full. Full of something deeper than entertainment, deeper than possessions, deeper even than words. It's the kind of silence that whispers, you already have enough. And that's when it hits you. True wealth has never been about what you own, but about how much peace lives inside of you. Think of the times you've bought something new. The excitement is real. The shiny shoes, the latest phone, the sleek car. For a few days, maybe weeks, you walk taller, smile wider, feel a little more important. But then something strange happens. The shoes scuff. The phone slows down. Someone drives by in a car that makes yours look outdated. And suddenly, what once made you feel rich now feels ordinary. That fleeting high is gone, and you're left with an itch for the next thing. That's not wealth. That's captivity. Real wealth is when your peace doesn't depend on what's in your hands, but on what's in your heart. I remember speaking with a man who had made millions. His mansion looked like something from a magazine spread. Marble floors, a staircase that curved like a ribbon, chandeliers that seemed to drip light. He told me, I thought this house would finally make me feel at rest. But every night I walk through these halls and all I feel is noise. What he meant wasn't the sound of footsteps or music or traffic. It was the noise of his own discontent. The more he owned, the louder it became. And when I asked him what he wanted more than anything else, he didn't say another business, another car, or another trip. He leaned forward and whispered, peace. I just want peace. Isn't it fascinating? The world measures wealth in numbers. How much money sits in your account? How many properties you own? How many zeros follow your salary? But when people are honest in their quietest moments, what they crave isn't numbers. It's a state of being. It's the ability to wake up in the morning without anxiety knotting their stomach. It's the freedom to sit with loved ones and actually feel present without their mind racing to the next meeting, the next deal, the next purchase. It's being able to close their eyes at night and not wrestle with regret or fear. That, my friend, is wealth. Think about it. If peace is missing, what good is anything else? You could be dining at the most expensive restaurant in Paris, a plate of food designed like artwork in front of you. But if your heart is restless, that meal will taste bitter. You could sleep in a 5-star hotel with silk sheets and the view of a glittering skyline, but if your mind is tangled with worry, you'll toss and turn until morning. You could have closets filled with luxury brands, yet still stand in front of the mirror and feel incomplete. Without peace, riches turn into heavy chains. With peace, even a simple meal of bread and water can feel like a feast. There's an old story I once heard. A king had everything: gold, armies, power. Yet he couldn't sleep at night. His advisors brought him the best musicians, the softest pillows, rare herbs, and potions to calm him. Nothing worked. Then one day he saw a poor farmer resting under a tree, sleeping peacefully after a long day's work. The king was baffled. How could someone with so little sleep so soundly while he, with everything, could not? And the truth was simple. The farmer's wealth wasn't in possessions but in his peace. That farmer, though the world saw him as poor, was richer than the king. Now, let me ask you, have you ever met someone who had very little but seemed unshakably calm, as if life couldn't touch them? They didn't worry about the latest trend. They didn't measure themselves by what others owned. And yet their presence alone made you feel grounded. That's real richness. That's what it looks like when peace becomes the treasure. I once heard a grandmother say something that never left me. She said, "I've seen people with mansions and I've seen people with shacks, but the happiest ones were the ones who could sit with a cup of tea and smile like it was enough." That sentence holds more wisdom than entire libraries, because peace transforms the ordinary into extraordinary. When you are at peace, a simple walk feels like a vacation, laughter with a friend feels like gold, and the quiet moments become more valuable than the loudest applause. And yet, our culture sells us the opposite story. It whispers constantly, "You're not enough, you don't have enough, you need more." It plants discontent like seeds, watering them with advertisements, comparisons, and endless scrolling. But here's the hidden cost. It steals your peace. And when peace is stolen, you become poor, no matter how rich you look on the outside. So let's flip the script. Imagine if wealth was measured not by your possessions, but by your peace. Imagine if the richest person in the room wasn't the one in designer clothes, but the one whose smile was genuine, whose laugh was free, whose presence was light. That changes everything, doesn't it? Because suddenly, you realize you can be wealthy right now. Not someday, not when you hit a financial goal, not when you acquire more, but now, this moment. If you choose to protect your peace, you're already richer than most. I think of the words of a monk I once read about. Someone asked him, "What does it feel like to own nothing?" He smiled and said, "It feels like owning everything." That's the paradox. When you're not bound by possessions, you begin to experience life itself as the ultimate possession. The sky, the trees, the people you love, the breath in your lungs. Suddenly these become priceless treasures. And no market, no thief, no recession can ever take them away. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. Everything you own, your house, your car, your phone, your clothes, gone in an instant. What's left? It's not the objects, it's you. Your peace, your strength, your presence. And if you build that, nothing can ever be taken from you. So I ask you, will you keep chasing things that fade, or will you start building the one treasure that lasts? Choose peace. Choose presence. Choose freedom. Because the truth is, time is short. Life is fragile. And every day you wait is another day lost to noise, to comparison, to the illusion that more will finally make you enough. The world doesn't need more people with bigger houses. The world needs more people with bigger hearts. The world doesn't need more noise. The world needs more peace. And that begins with you. It begins tonight. It begins now. So when you walk out of this room, remember this: you can spend your life collecting things, or you can spend your life collecting peace. One will fill your closet, the other will fill your soul. And in the end, only one of them goes with you.